what did I learn while I was there? What did I learn as a kid? How can I take that to what I'm doing today? I'm trying to be a business leader. I'm trying to lead my team. I'm trying to lead an industry in e-commerce. At least I feel like I am. And so how can I take like that crazy upbringing in some ways, or those crazy experiences into what I'm doing today?
Well, good morning. It's good to be together again, and it's exciting to spend time with Andrew Morgans, who I know a lot of folks on here know. Andrew has, uh, like so many folks we've talked to, an incredible and unique entrepreneurial journey. And his is more unique than most, having the perspective of having spent a number of his youth years in another country and then making his way here and taking on that journey and now running a number of companies. And so it's an exciting story filled with lessons, I'm sure more than even than he and I've captured before talking, but just inspiring to see someone who's done all he's done and continue to have a positive impact on the community. So Andrew, I thought you might start off and just tell us a bit about that journey and where it began in another land, and what that was like, and the lessons you learned growing up outside the United States, and how that shaped, how you came here and turned that into business success.
Randy, thank you so much for that intro. Randy, we met and we were just talking about business, and we were connected, I think, by our mutual friend Kelly. Um, Kelly, nice to see you. Linda, nice to see you. So many familiar faces. Um, I don't know. I'm a younger man, thinking about leadership lessons and just, thinking about this morning. There's so many stories I can tell. And, I guess I'll just start kind of at the beginning. I was born in Montreal. My parents were there learning French in an immersion school. They felt called, I guess, at the time to French Africa. So they were in Montreal, Quebec for about 7 years. And by the time I was 3, I was in Cameroon. Um, Cameroon, we were like literally in cement huts, like out there in the bush, as they called it. Barefoot, running around, like real Tarzan type stuff. We were out there. My friends had a chimp named Shelly that lived in the house. She wore clothes. Just some kind of crazy things, when you think about just like growing up and what that was like. That would never fly today. There's no one would own a chimp that would wear clothes sitting at the table for sure. Um, and then from Cameroon, we came back to Kansas City just for a little bit, went to Moscow, um, lived in Moscow for 1 year. My parents were filling in. So basically, they taught English to French speaking countries with Christian curriculum. So, and then would do different things like that. So, we were always going to these schools kind of, and they would teach and give out curriculum and things like that. And um, Moscow, we filled in for a year. Hated Moscow. I was just an African boy, I like being barefoot, and they put me in shoes and coats, and it was freezing. And I just was like, why did they take me here? Then we went to Botswana. It was actually had some like tensions at the time. Botswana was like a desert. I was there probably till about 10 years old. And then eventually ended up in Congo, Africa. Randy, a little bit different than the book that you sent my way. We were not on the Brazzaville side, so we were on Zaire side at the time, across the river. And it was the most dangerous country in the world at that time before 9/11. So I was there. If you guys have ever seen Hotel Rwanda or any of those movies, right after that, I think it ended in the early 90s. And then right after that is when I was in Congo in the later 90s. So a lot of those losing armies all ran to the Congo jungle. So Congo is bigger than I think 3 Texases if you put them together. So it's a really big country for a lot of the world, maybe even bigger than that. I'm not sure. And it's huge. And so a lot of these armies, a lot of the, countries around there, as they go through whatever they're going through throughout the years, the losing armies run to the jungle and hide there because it's easy. And so it just creates a really tumultuous environment there, that I'm not sure another part of the world really has, mainly because it's not a desert, it's not barren, it literally has like every resource you can imagine. So I've held a handful, like, of diamonds, uranium, weapons grade uranium came through there. I've seen mercury, I've seen crazy things as a kid, that would come through there because of war, and then they would end up trying to find my dad and be like, can you get this out, can you, help us make some money? And my dad, I'm an entrepreneur now. I didn't really see my dad as an entrepreneur. I didn't even know what that word meant, for the longest time. But it was always seeing my dad do hustles, always seeing him, trying to, he self-supported himself, which is kind of a crazy thing, but he went to these countries in the world where there weren't a lot of other people doing anything, and he self-funded himself, and he went there and helped people. And it was a different time. There was no social media. No one was going there for likes. No one was going there for, like, holding cute kids and getting a reshare or like going viral or anything like that. It was just, people that were just called to help other people. I do believe it was like that. And seeing my dad, like, I guess, was different. I guess I'll talk about some of the leadership stuff you can learn. Is like, I was a kid, 12 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old. I would go to school in the morning, homeschool, be done by 10 a.m. or so, if I just took a couple hours to get through my studies. And then I would go with my dad all day to do grown-up stuff. I was kind of his sidekick, and I would keep him out of trouble, really, because they would look at a guy with a son, that's, a teenager, as being a little less threatening. So we would smuggle money. It was illegal to exchange US dollars to Congolese francs, but if you did, you had 2 backpacks of money, so I'm going with dad, we're going through this room, this room, this room, this room, down this tunnel, up this room, down this room, and then you end up with a lady with a desk and some guards around her, and you're exchanging money, at a Yamaha building or a Suzuki building or something like that. Because Kinshasa is 12 million people, and the soldiers were surrounding the city at the time. It was just a dangerous place, and I'll share with you guys. But things like in this environment, and not all of Africa was crazy, but I wasn't in South Africa. I was in Kinshasa, Congo, in the 90s, the late 90s, when things were really crazy. And for example, me and my dad, in the first year we were there, we were walking in this neighborhood, and we got picked up by police and kidnapped for a day. Guns to our head, kind of all that, really trying to frighten you, take you out of town. It's a 12 million people city, 97% unemployment. So you can kind of do the math and understand what the population was like. Just like this really crazy energy. I'm going to tell a couple stories, but I wanted to lay a little bit of the groundwork for kind of like what to imagine here. You can imagine being in like a war zone like that and coming back to Kansas City, and like, what that's like. I was kidnapped with my dad. We were lucky enough to get away the next morning, basically early hours of the morning. They just let us go after they had kind of taken everything that we had and frightened us. They just decided to let us go. I had friends get shot. The president was assassinated while we were there. They evacuated everyone. We didn't go. My dad's crazy. He locked the gate and said, he bribed the machine gunner up on top of the hill and said, watch our house. The rebels are coming, but like, we can't afford to get back, so we're going to stay here in lockdown. And you just saw a lot of crazy things at a young age that I don't think a lot of 12-year-olds are getting a chance to see, and it's especially being a white male, and just seeing complete privilege in some ways, and then just seeing devastation in other ways, and seeing perspectives that in my mind are priceless treasures for me. And there was like so much going on. I have a couple of stories of entrepreneurship there that were absolutely insane. I think my greatest story of entrepreneurship comes out of the Congo. um I'll go into those. Is this all right, guys? Okay, I know we're not talking straight leadership. I want to lay the groundwork for someone that's like, well, you grew up in Africa. What does that mean? And Africa is this massive, massive, massive continent, and every country is different. And when we came out of Congo, for example, I'm laying this groundwork of what this was like. And I flew out the day we flew out. We landed in Johannesburg, and I was at a shopping mall. So I went from like AKs and crazy chaos and gunfire and all that kind of stuff for about 4 years to like a shopping mall with ice cream. And the perspectives on what's happening in the world and what you learn of them, it's taken me till now. I'm still continuing to learn really how all of that impacted me, to be able to just like process it all, because so much happened in those years. That was like, what did I learn? What did I learn while I was there? What did I learn as a kid? How can I take that to what I'm doing today? I'm trying to be a business leader. I'm trying to lead my team. I'm trying to lead an industry in e-commerce. At least I feel like I am. And so how can I take like that crazy upbringing in some ways, or those crazy experiences, into what I'm doing today? And outside of just perspective, I think the perspective has always been easy. I just had the perspective of like, no one owes me anything. I might be, my family was five of us. My dad, I think combined when we were in the US, we made about $30,000, putting that in perspective for the five of us. Being white in the suburbs in Kansas City, that's okay. But you're not wearing the Doc Martens at school when you come back, and so some of that perspective was like, no one owes me anything. I felt so privileged to be in this country, coming from that I feel like I've had an edge on almost everyone else that I've grown up with or been around, because I just had this like golden ticket to perspective on what matters and what other people have to overcome. And just because I like am over a puddle, I'm in a different situation. And for the longest time I didn't make any sense of that. But as I'm getting older, I'm like really thinking about those times and what they've done for me. So I'm gonna keep going. So there's this story of I'm gonna give you guys a funny one before we get real juicy. But we my dad was trying to, so this is a business group here, and my dad was always trying to make money on the side, find some way to support us financially so that we could continue to stay there, not need to come back and raise money. And that part sucked. 6 months of traveling or a year of traveling, when you come back trying to go to these different places raising money to go back. So we're there, and at the time the rebels are outside the city. And you have to understand, these rebels are the ones that will like machete you. Like they were, we knew people that were, it was like we had a neighbor whose friend's daughter went missing, and they were just, not to be too graphic, but they were taking people, chopping them up, selling their body parts on the black market, like real fear stuff, like really, really, really fearful stuff. People people you're hearing about disappearing, and they're not just going away and disappearing. These are like violent crimes. These are like people like in Hotel Rwanda that were just murdering their brothers and sisters. So crazy kind of people. If you've ever seen them, you just know when you look them in the eyes, like these people are crazy. And so these people are outside the city. So you didn't go outside the city. Like, that was easy. These people are out there, they have machetes, don't go. Well, we are going outside the city. There's a tribal leader that owned a bunch of land, and there's these massive trees in Congo. And it was money in the bank, as my dad used to say, to take the trees, like these trees that were in this tribal land, and float them down the river to Brazzaville, which is another big city in Congo on the coast. and you'd sell them at the port. Well, the tribal leader had the wood. It was already downed. These big trees. These trees are like just maybe the size of a container in diameter, maybe bigger, just massive, massive trees. And we were going to go look at these trees and see if it was feasible. We had bought a chainsaw from Yamaha, and we were going to go cut these trees. The trees were already down, sorry. And we were going to go find them, talk to the tribal leader, partner with him. It's his trees. He'd give them to us. My dad would finance the boats to get them down to Brazzaville. It was going to be money in the bank. Well, my sisters couldn't go because it's too dangerous. And my older sister was a couple years above me, and a teenage girl was like developing and just like too dangerous for us to have her out like around soldiers and things like that. Like as a 12-year-old child, I'm processing, maybe at this time I'm 14, I'm processing my sister can't go because she might get raped or killed, right? That's like kind of something crazy to think about when you're going out for a side hustle, just to investigate. And it's like, now I'm going with dad because if the girls go, it might be that much more dangerous. You guys might think my dad's crazy, and he is, but at the same time, he believed we had the hand of God over us for protection, and so I feel like he was had a lot more courage than the normal person, the normal amount. And so we're out there. I promise this story's going somewhere, but we're out there. We get out past the city. We get out past, we run through a blockade. That's sometimes you have to do that. If they're going to stop you, you just got to go and guess and pray that they don't have bullets. They had guns. You just had to pray they didn't have bullets sometimes. So we go through, we end up at this village, and there's a big difference between being in the village and being in the city of Kinshasa. In Kinshasa, they're wearing Western clothes. In the city, in the villages, if they're wearing clothes, you're lucky. And there's like a couple miles difference to get that kind of environment. While we're there, my dad's getting in a canoe on the Congo River, the second largest river in the world, I believe. Crocodiles, like this is a crazy river. And my dad's getting in, so we're in this space I've never been with these people I don't know. They don't speak English or French. They speak Lingala because we're out in the village. My dad I'm redheaded, and you can see I always have a hat. I'll probably always have a hat on. I grew up with one because I was redheaded in the jungle, and I would burn away if I didn't have something on my head. So it's almost like a part of my body these days. But I'm there, and I decide I grew up in Africa my whole life. I know I can't stay out in the sun, so I like find this tree, and I find this tree, I sit down. My dad's getting on this canoes in this raging river with some people I don't really know, and our best guy, Felix Caboza. And they get in, and he's like, hey, I think it's too dangerous. Mind you, it wasn't too dangerous to get me there, but my dad's like, it's too dangerous for you to get in the canoes to go down and check out these trees. You stay here. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay in this village with these people I don't even know. In the village might have been 20 people on the riverbank, kind of right there, covered by trees in the jungle. They felt like hours that they were gone. And I'm like 14 years old. 14. I came back when I was 16. So I think this was a couple years. I have a really hard time with timelines, I'll be honest. And while I'm sitting there, I know not to sit in this hill or look for bugs or like take care of yourself. Like I've grown up in Africa my whole life. And all of a sudden I just get a bite, and then I get another bite, and I get another bite, and I just start being like, what is going on? And these ants were falling out of this big tree that was above me. They were like literally like strategically climbing down the branch and then dropping on me and just like eating me. They just started eating me almost alive. It was horrible. And I started yelling, and the ladies from the village run over, and they start taking off my clothes to pull these things off. And mind you, I'm a little boy, really, kind of. I'm just like, these girls are like, don't have tops on. They're like taking my clothes off. I'm like, oh my God, like, who are these people? I can't even talk to them. They're pulling these ants off me. I'm traumatized, obviously, at the time. They get them off me. I'm like, get my clothes back on. By this time, my dad's coming back a little bit later. One of the boats had sank, so you have 4 men now in one of the canoes. They didn't get to the wood. It was too crazy because these were like handmade wooden boats in the Congo River. I don't know why they thought that was a great idea. Um, we get back. Their adventure was so crazy because there had been crocodiles in the water and whatever. We didn't get the wood. We get back in the Mitsubishi and we go back. And that story I'll never forget it. Me and my dad never spoke about it. And I when I think about it, there's a leadership lesson in here, but I just wanted to share that one. Um, when I look back to that, I was like, I was traumatized as a boy. No one had ever seen me naked besides my mom, pretty much. At that point, I didn't go to public schools. I'm in this environment that I'm not comfortable with. I didn't know anyone. It wasn't like the city. My dad's out there trying to do the best thing. He's out there trying to make money for the family and trying to like secure our place there. And in my head, I'm just like, I knew better. That shouldn't have happened. I'm not gonna talk about that. It's embarrassing to get bit by ants in Africa when you grow up there. It's like, how does that happen? And we got back in the SUV. I sat in the back. Felix and my dad were up front, and we never talked about it. We never talked about it one time. And I think it's more of, I want to talk about communication, I guess is my point in this one. Kind of sharing this story is like, that was something that affected me for so long. Not in a mental health wise way or anything, not in like some super traumatizing, but in just like this, things happen to you and you don't say anything, and you're like, this happened to me and this happened to me, and in business even, and it's like, this person didn't pay me on time, or this person ripped me off here, or this person said they're going to connect with me for coffee and let it go. And 99% things I've learned is 99% of the time, almost, it's communication. And not being able to, my dad not knowing to talk to me and me not knowing to talk to my dad. I sat in the back. We didn't talk the whole way. They were talking about their canoe. They were talking about what happened to them. I was just thinking about what happened to me. And we went a long time. And today, almost every situation that I come across, whether it's with my roommate and we're doing property management stuff, we have about 100 properties here in the city. So we're always chatting that up, and almost every single time it's communication there. And I'm like, well, what was the situation? What did they believe to be true? Well, what's going on here? Help. Okay, I might ask 25 clarifying questions to understand what's going on. And so for me, it's been kind of understanding that. I feel like I just keep coming back to communication when it comes to leadership. Like, it's the hard conversations. It's the conversations you've never had before. It's the conversations around, asking, you've got your own stuff going on. You've got other important people around you. How do you speak to them? What's going on? How do you get to them? Everybody communicates differently. I sit in these panels or groups, and you hear different people speak, and everyone has a different communication style, and then we're crossing cultures. And I think it's one of the most important things. I work with we've got a couple older people in my company now at Marknology, like push over 60. We've got some that are 20, legitimately. Different communication styles to both of them, and really realizing that that's what my position as a leader is in my company, is bridging that gap, trying to bridge that gap. And I was never someone, I guess I shared some of that to show, like, my dad's a great man. He's very kind. He's one of the kindest people I've ever met in my life. He can't communicate. And if you let that hold you back in business, I don't want to say if you're making a mistake, but that's not really what I meant to say, I guess, in those same words. But it's things like that where he just didn't even know to communicate. If he had said a few things, we would have been fine. And so like understanding where your shortcomings are has been huge for me, in regards to moving forward, whether it's in biz dev, whether it's with my own team, whether it's communicating across, I'm in a space where the tech speak around it can be kind of daunting. And if I'm not communicating effectively to, let's say, owners that have never been in e-commerce, their entire business, like let's use a local one, like Faultless Brands, for example, that was always wholesale or brick and mortar. Now we're moving to e-commerce. I've been working with them 3 years and we're going direct to consumer. But if I'm trying to get kind of like business principles across to them that we're now implementing in 2021 in regards to direct to consumer, and I'm talking to them in a language that they're not going to understand, we're not going to be on the same page. And so, I think that was kind of what I wanted to really push on that one, is just like that has been a major focus for me in my teams as I'm trying to build teams. I think right now I am in the team building. That's my focus right now. I've got a team of 15. I think the world is just prime for what we do. That's no pun intended on the Amazon thing. But I think that it's prime for what we do, and like team building is everything. So I'm going on all these informational interviews. I'm just trying to communicate. I used to be just like operate off of gut, so much off of my gut. And I'm almost always right. So it was easy, with my gut to make decisions. And I'm finding that as I'm trying to scale that past like the immediate people I'm in contact with, is I get to spend less time with people, let's say with their energy or with their personality, and I'm getting to spend less one-on-one time with those people. I need to communicate better instead of just like being able to be like, well, I've been around them, I know how I feel about them, I know what my gut's saying, this is a good move, or they're happy at work, they're happy in their role. How do you know? Well, I talked to them 6 months ago. Well, have you talked to them today? We just went through the pandemic, stuff changes every single day, so having those conversations is really, really important. I don't know, I'm gonna pause for a little bit, just because before I go into another story, because I really just prepared a couple of fun stories like that with a little business principle in them, just to like kind of share some fun stuff.
Yeah, I think Drew's got a question here. If he's Drew, you still there? He may have jumped off for a call or something there. He's still there, but he may have got distracted.
No problem at all. Has anyone in the group ever been to Africa, any country in Africa? Katie?
I see Katie has.
Yeah, I've been to Ethiopia, Uganda, Rwanda, South Africa.
Okay, Rwanda is really close to Congo, obviously. A lot of the same tribes. Yes, so that would be a very similar, I think, kind of environment to how Congo was, for sure.
Yeah, I've been to Botswana, Namibia, South Africa, Tanzania, and Kenya, and South Africa.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Is that Jim?
Yes.
Sorry, it's moving around fast. That's awesome. We might have to get coffee.
I would love it. I've actually been 3 times. I'll send you a note at the end so we don't delay here.
Yeah, no problem. It's just
Marilyn's got a question here.
Yeah.
Unmute Marilyn.
Okay. This is amazing. I just want to let you know, I've heard a lot of speakers, but your story is as amazing as anyone's I've ever heard. But my question is, because I believe that language is very important. So do you have any certain questions, or do you have a certain way that you go about when you're trying to bridge the gap?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a methodology, and that's what I'm kind of like, I guess, still learning, is how to be more intentional with it. I'm the person that like, they're like, hey, do you want to see, what do you think about this service? Or do you need to cut into your steak? I'm like, I don't need to cut into my steak. The steak's gonna be fine. Like when people are like, they have these questions, maybe I'm just like, I'm the person that's never bothered. Like, the steak's gonna be fine. I don't need to cut into it to know that it's cooked okay. I'm gonna eat it however it comes out. So that's a silly thing. But for me, I've never had those questions. It's not the curiosity. It's more so just like, okay, ask more questions, Andrew. Just because they're not giving you that information forthright, or like, just they're coming out with it, doesn't mean that you're being pushy by asking, or doesn't mean that you're invading their space or their boundaries to ask them more direct questions. So I don't have a particular set of questions to get there. For me, in business, I don't come from a business background. I come from someone that gave me a people background, probably, and a relationship background. In a team building background. That's the one thing that my dad, some of the things that my dad taught me that weren't in business were, how to build a team and how to lead a team in some ways. And in those, it's like, sorry, I lost my train of thought just a minute. But, I guess when it comes to those, it's like, as I'm learning business, it's really come down to that assumptions thing. And I'm a little hard of hearing, actually. I know I read lips. So the pandemic has been kind of brutal with the masks and everything. And, you can use all these things as excuses, or you can just ask, and I'll sit there in a business meeting. I don't care if they're worth $100 million. If I don't understand something, I just ask. I'm just like, I don't understand that. I don't care to look stupid. I just don't care what people think. So, in my mind, I'm communicating, hey, I don't understand that. Hey, what do you mean by that? Can you talk to me like a child? Just really break this down. I know I'm smart enough to get it. I just, that tech speak kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And, that's me on my side. And then on their side, I guess, not intentional questions, but and I know that I think there's an official term for this, but for me, growing up all over the world, talking to people that maybe have nothing, right? They like a dirt floor that's cleaner than our homes here, which is crazy. No screens on their windows. How do you talk to kids that you have so much more than? What do you talk about? How do you communicate to a man that I have more money than maybe a 50-year-old man or 60-year-old man at 13 years old, and I've got $10 in my piggy bank, and I got more than him? How do you communicate? What do you say to them? And so for me, it's always been being able to relate. I didn't know it at the time, but I can almost talk to anyone, because it's like I have had to talk to people that we've had absolutely nothing in common. Their lives might be threatened, and I can call the UN for a ride and get out of here, and just like, those are crazy perspectives. But how do you have conversations with people where you're on such differing opinions, or just such differing, privileges? How do you meet in the middle? And so I think I'm also in this space in e-commerce, and being digitally first, I think, is what they call it, and just like pushing really the envelope for Amazon and growth in those ways. And I'm doing things that a lot of business owners that have made millions of dollars have no idea about, and they don't understand how to speak to it, and they don't understand some of the principles. And that's how, business wise, it applies to me. And it's just about speaking to them in their language. So for me, it was understanding what those businesses, how they refer to things. I spend a lot of time understanding other people's worlds so I can speak to them.
That's great.
So I know it wasn't intentional questions, but those are some of my strategies.
Oh, no, that was actually a great answer. And I think it kind of goes back to the old Stephen Covey, seek first to understand before you seek to be understood.
Totally. Yeah, that was shorter and sweeter. I like that. I'm going to steal that one.
Okay.
I got another story for you guys if you want. I don't know all of the leadership lessons in these, but I saw leadership in a man that blew my mind while I was there. And I want to tell that story. His name, I'm just going to call him Pastor Bernard. In the best way I can explain it, this city, just the city alone, is 12 million people in the middle of a war with like 97+% unemployment. So everyone's working, but no one's doing anything important. They're just trying to eat, you know what I mean? And so a lot of free time. And it was New Year's Eve, and my mom had malaria. So she was at home with malaria for her second time in her life. And she was with my little sister, Brooklyn. We were in the city, and my dad really wanted to go to this meeting. And my dad didn't like start churches. He would just, get plugged in with different pastors. There's already Christianity in Congo is insane. You go to these church services that were just like bigger than you can ever imagine. You go to a Chiefs game and you think it's full. That's a joke in comparison. Just people as far as you can see. And it was this New Year's Eve service. We had a personal invite from this Bernard guy. He's like MLK at the time, like just huge in regards to the people that would come out and hear him speak. And the people all had jobs, and the rebels are coming in, and there was just like political craziness there that was happening. And remember, the president had gotten assassinated a little bit while we were there. The rebels didn't take the city at that time, but they'd killed the president. So there was this like turnover time, and just like the religious leaders had a big role in keeping the city at peace and just calm while they figured things out. And my dad said, yes, let's go to this meeting. This time my sister went with us. So it was me, my dad, and my sister. We went to a soccer stadium. I don't know the name of it. You could look it up. But there's a European Belgian soccer stadium in the city of Kinshasa. And if you know anything about European soccer stadiums, they're like, sometimes 2x, 3x what an NFL stadium would be. They're just like really, really big. And it was the church services there were several hours of dancing, choreographed dancing. So it wasn't just like worship singers. It was like a concert. It was awesome, really. They had, crazy dancing, 10 or 12 people in a group doing stuff. And we were on the 50-yard line watching this service. And it started filling up. And so it was me, my sister, and my dad. We were probably we were the only white people, maybe in several 100,000 people. I don't want to throw a number out there, but this stadium fits several 100,000, and we get over capacity. So we're there, starts filling up. They put 20 chairs down on the field. And as it filled up, they're like, why don't you come down here and sit? It's like guest of honor type stuff. They're very, very like respectful and hosts like that, and are just like, to the man of God, they treat them like they're royalty, basically. And so you could be as poor as whatever. If you're a pastor, the respect level there in Congo is very high. So Pastor Douglas, they say, come down. We go and sit down there. So now we're next to these singers, and it's like being at a dance. I don't know, a dance, not recital, but a performance. It was just absolutely crazy. And I remember, because I'm a teenager, and I'm seeing all these beautiful women just like dance like crazy on the field, like for hours. And then, I'm a teenage boy. That's how I remember it. I'm just like, this is crazy. And well, they're going. The speaker hasn't even gone on yet. Like I said, his name is Pastor Bernard. They locked the gates of the stadium, and it's just been filling up. It's probably like 2 hours. We're getting closer to New Year's Eve. It was just going to be this like big kind of thing, a free service, so like everyone can come. And they closed the gates of the stadium. Well, so many people wanted inside to hear this guy speak that they busted down the gates. And so these big gates, like it'd be like at the bottom of the field where like maybe the medical trucks would come in and out if a player got hurt or something. They bust those down, and they're rushing the field. And this is a Christian service, meaning like it's not supposed to be like a political event or anything like that, but it kind of had the energy of a political event. And just thousands and thousands of people rush the field. So all the people in the stands start like, it just turns into this crazy riot, like this insane riot. And they're rushing the field, and like to the point where like people are going to get killed just from getting ran over or walked over, or like it's chaos. And we were now down on the field. Everyone just starts panicking a little bit. Like the security guards, there's some security there. They try to like separate the people, kind of create a circle around the pastors and us. And at that time, they weren't like taking care of us. They were taking care of this Pastor Bernard guy, because he's like MLK. And it's absolute chaos happening, like just riot. And he just he gets in the microphone and he just, in French, he just tells everyone to sit down Indian style. And in the middle of all of this chaos, everyone like just sits Indian style. As far as you can see, like hundreds of thousands of people. And he just started speaking calmly to them. You know, it maybe was 30 minutes. I don't know. It seemed like time was forever. But he just spoke to them, and I couldn't remember all that he was saying because there's Lingala and French and Pidgin English, and there's all these translations going on, and I definitely wasn't listening to the words. I was just like looking around at these people that are about to like trample us, that now are like sitting Indian style. And after a few minutes, some personal security staff came and grabbed us and was like, "We need to get you out of here." Personal security being like their personal security, not like ours or anything like that. And we got out of there. And that will be a memory. That's a short version, of a crazy night. But that'll be a memory of like seeing a leader control people that were in absolute chaos with just the gentlest words that I'll never forget. And I'm not sure how many other events in history have been tumultuous riots like that, where it's kind of just like absolute chaos and people would just peacefully just relax. But I saw a man using just words calm down one of the most craziest situations I had ever said. And bringing that back to communication, is like a lot of times it's not even what you're saying, but it's how you deliver them. And I remember just the calmness in that, and I think that's something that I try to take into business when I'm dealing with my staff. We're in a marketing agency, an advertising agency type of environment with 50 brands or so that we manage on a monthly basis. And you got clients stressed about this, you've got the elevator going off, you got the mail guy coming in asking for someone, you've got all this chaos going on as a leader. Sometimes you've got people late to pay, whatever's going on in your business when there's a chaotic situation. And it's never the time to communicate out of stress or like anger or just like being loud. It's easy to just like command respect by being loud and being like shutting things down or telling people to be quiet or get focused or whatever you have to do to communicate to the team. You guys can get what I'm getting at here. But sometimes it can just be the softest voice as a leader that really gets people to pay attention and get the job done. I want to stop.
That's an awesome example. I see Drew's back. Drew, you want to ask your question now?
What happens when you get a phone call in the middle of these? I apologize for that. I was mesmerized. I've spent, I haven't had very many good memories in Africa with my time in Somalia. But I really was interested in your struggles as a leader in terms of communications. And I say it that way because I think some people are really good at giving, being a team cheerleader. Others are really good at articulating to people areas that they need to improve. And hopefully over time, you learn how to do all of that stuff because it's all really important. What have been your struggles as you've developed as a leader in terms of communicating to your people?
Overcomplications, like taking what it's like you're playing a game and of like 100 strategies to win the game, and you're trying to teach someone new the game, and you're like, which one do you teach them? And you're like, well, I would want to know all 100 because that's who I am. I want to know every way that's possible to win the game. And they really just need to know a couple. This is their first time. And I think that's one of the things that's always been a struggle for me, is coming at something from every perspective and every angle and over analyzing it. I'm definitely, I guess I brought up some of the stories of me as a kid hanging out with adults all day because I just sat there and listened and watched for like, it's bring your kid to school day in a war zone type city for 4 years straight, just hanging out. And I just watched and observed. And I I wasn't interacting, I'm just there. I'm just a kid. Don't be seen. Don't talk, just hang out. And so for that, it's always been a struggle because I'm always thinking I never really had to communicate. I was quiet. And then my dad didn't talk to me about things like that. Something I talk about the communication thing because it's so important to me. The day that we got kidnapped and picked up, my dad, I don't think he'd care if I share this, but once they let us go, he was so tough until they let us go. We were in a warehouse outside the city. It would have been nothing for us to disappear. We have no money. They couldn't have held us ransom. It'd have been nothing really to disappear in Congo like that. We've called, the UN or soldiers when we were in situations when they said hey, call us if anything happens. And they're like, you're shit out of luck. We can't help you. So we had done that before. There's plenty of situations where we weren't just Americans that could make a call and get help. And, so I was saying whenever we got picked up and then they let us go, they left us with our passports. They took everything else. I think my dad was really arguing about we couldn't go without our passports. You can take everything else, can't take our passports. And I saw him just break down crying. I'd never seen my dad break down crying. He's a big man, 6'4", just a tough guy. Not tough physically, just can do anything, type stuff. And he broke down. We ended up, he's like, okay, we got to get home. We had no money. And no one takes you in Congo anywhere without money because no one has any gas. You would be in line for 2 days to get gas in Kinshasa. So we were asking taxis to take us. Do you have any money to pay up front? No, we have no money. And so we eventually came across someone that took us across all of Kinshasa. It's a 12 million city. We were outside the city and there's no skyscrapers. It's a big city. It just goes for miles and miles and miles of flat. And we got back, we went to bed. Me and my dad never talked about that time that we got picked up, together. And so communication hasn't been something that it was early for me. You just take your struggles and you internalize them, and you just think about them. And being raised like that, I think now that I'm in business and understanding communication, and how important it is, especially when I'm trying to communicate, at least in my space, in my career, I'm trying to communicate something that people don't understand. The pandemic has made everyone kind of understand e-commerce a little bit better, but as a business principle, it's completely different. And so those have been struggles for me, just overcomplicating things, not being good at just like Marilyn helped me out, just a short and sweet saying that summarizes so much. And then talking to so many different cultures and people type, a lot of times you can say the right words, even let's say I'm talking to someone in Pidgin English, for example, I can say the right words. They take it completely different than what I'm saying. And I think that has been something that I understood early on, whether it's male or female or someone older, someone younger, we're coming from different perspectives. And even if I say the exact same things to two different people, it's going to be taken a different way. And that kept me from speaking a lot, Drew. It kept me from saying anything at all. To be misunderstood, I'd rather just not say anything at all. And it really was a damper on me, and it's still something I work on continuously, to be able to communicate. So I don't know if that's helpful.
No, I appreciate it. Seems like we're all waiting in line for gas these days is what we hear. So, but again, thanks. No, I really do appreciate those comments, especially about your father, because it is hard as a senior leader sometimes to really let other people know what you're thinking until it's over. And then after it's over, it's easy. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And I think about it now in a different perspective, that my dad probably just didn't want my mom to know how close we came to getting killed. And so we didn't talk about it. If me and him didn't talk about it, I wasn't talking to him about mom, that's for sure. I'm dad's best bud, so and he probably thought I was tougher than I was. We went through a lot of stuff together, even as a teenager, and different situations. We were always looking out for each other. So you just gotta, I think about some of the lessons, Drew, like growing up in Africa teach you, you approach the world completely different, like Somalia, for example. And I hope I'm not overstepping here, but in Somalia, they make money fishing, commercial fishing. Commercial fishing has taken over the only way that they make money. How do they make money now? They rob commercial fishermen. And so now you even think about Somalian pirates in a different way, because you're like, what other choice do they have? If you've lived in a city with 12 million with 97% unemployment, you're like, what choice do they have? What choice do they have? That perspective of just, understanding people at a different level. If you're just here in Kansas City in the Midwest, it's something you'll never completely understand until you've been somewhere like that.
Your experiences in Africa there's probably tons more that you would share. I chuckle because the largest exporter of copper in the world in 1990 and 1991 was Somalia. There ain't one copper mine in Somalia, but they were stripping when there was the civil war. They were stripping all the copper from every building in Mogadishu and beyond. It was just so you're the survival gene that you see in Africa is exactly that. It can be brutal at times, but nonetheless, it is amazing. And what your experiences are, obviously, you could write books on it.
Well, maybe we'll get there. I have one more short one I want to share. I know we're getting close on time. I have one more short one. I think it's a little bit less about communication. It's a leadership thing. I've said some stuff about my dad. I'll brag on him for one. So we were in Cameroon, and we were going to an outside village, and he would remember the name, but I can't. It was several hours, and in Cameroon, different than Congo, completely different country. Obviously, we're out there in the bush. The bush is like, it wasn't as dangerous from people, but the bush would swallow you up for sure in a matter of seconds if you were left out there. And we were traveling. It had gotten dark, and when it gets dark in Africa, it's dark. You can't see anything. And road holes that like would just swallow your Jeep if you went in them and didn't come out on the other side, like just like crazy roads. And you didn't get stuck out there. It was a no option. There's a no option. And we were not soldiers, but there is just this way of life that's like life or death. It can be very serious pretty quick. And we had a Jeep, probably a Mitsubishi SUV, something like that. And it broke down. And my dad's not a mechanic. He's like, I don't know if you guys have seen Big Bang Theory, but he's more like Sheldon. Okay. Like my dad's like super smart. Like he's like, his IQ is almost genius, but he is a computer nerd type guy. Like a Sheldon. That's the best way to explain it. And so if you understand that, like he didn't teach me how to work on cars. He taught me how to work on computers and stuff like that. But we're out there in the bush, and I was much younger. I still just remember this story. We weren't going to get there. Like you can't sleep with a family, little kids in the bush, in the middle of the bush. Like no way, Jose, you would just disappear. And so we're stuck out there. What do you do? And the belt on the fan belt on the Jeep had busted. And this is the solution. I'll be short and sweet. He took the spare tire. This is why, like, there is no, I couldn't figure it out. This is why I'm different than I think a lot of millennials even, is just you figure it out. Like African ingenuity is at another level. When you're there, when there's nothing else to do, your back's against the wall, you figure it out. And he took one of the spare tires, and he took like a X-Acto knife, and he cut strips out of the spare tire and made a temporary belt to use in the fan to limp us to the next village. And he just cut multiple strips out of that spare tire. And I think there's a leadership principle there in regards to just like, when you have to figure it out, you got to figure it out. And there's nothing like when you're in a business and you've got a big problem ahead of you. There is no option to just stay the night there and we'll figure it out in the morning. You might not wake up in the morning, so you got to do whatever it takes. And I think thinking outside the box and lessons like that, I'm sharing 3 or 4 with you guys, but lessons like that about being outside the box have been invaluable to me as I'm, trying to bootstrap a business.
You got time for a couple more questions?
Yes, sir.
Let's go to Mary Shannon.
Thanks, Randy. Andrew, I just wanted to say that it's interesting that you chose, after your life experiences, that you chose e-commerce, because it's like your stories are so vivid. And to me, the story of understanding various cultures and how to communicate to them, I think it's the point that we're missing today, that as we talk about sitting around tables, you have to understand the other person's point of view. And so I see you as a speaker or someone with a big nonprofit. I don't know. But I mean, it's just so many different things. And so I just thought it was interesting that you chose e commerce. And after you've explained it, now I understand why you did, because of that communication piece and helping people to understand. Because I think in today's world, um, you have to learn how to be calm in the time of storms.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for being here today.
Let's go to Steve Johns.
Andrew, we're going to run out of time, so I'll make this quick. We're all genetic downloads of our parents, and so we've learned a lot about your relationship with your father and what you gained from that and from your environment. So what did you gain from your mother?
Oh man, everything else. She is a queen. Kindness, creativity. We lived in a compound with 4 walls. Sometimes we couldn't leave. Like, how did we get along with each other? How did we make the most out of nothing? How do we have fun? I've never needed things because we would find ways to have fun. Crazy work ethic. My mom has crazy work ethic. Yeah. And I mean, she had me reading before I was 3 years old. So like, I guess I was educated by my mom. Not in the streets, so to speak, but in the books. Yeah, I learned a lot from my mom.
Let me close with this one, because as I listen to your stories, and you're very authentic. I mean, you come across very authentic and very open, but you're in an environment surrounded by trauma where I imagine you're always on edge, always have your guard up, always have to be suspicious. And then you come back to Kansas City, where folks do business based on relationships and trust. How do you coach yourself to trust and to build those relationships when you've come from an environment where that maybe didn't come natural?
Well, it's really just been less about other people and more about myself, figuring myself out. And as it's taken me, years to get there. But as I've figured out who I am as a man, who I am as a person, what I bring to the table, what my boundaries are, the type of people I want to work with and communicate with, I can build anyone's business, in my opinion. If it, product based, I can build anyone's business. I can put my energy behind anyone's business. I want to put it behind people that are aligned with me. So like when I'm trying to identify those people, it's like, I know who I am. And so I feel like that kind of attracts that. It's been kind of a hard lesson, definitely as a young man, trusting, because in Africa, it's very tribal mindset. Like, I use the word tribe in my team and different things like that, but you all work together if you're on the same team. And that was a hard thing to understand here, is that not everyone thinks that way. And I think it's just, as I got more self-aware, as I went through different things in life here in the States, it just been like, how do I let people pass this guard, so to speak, personally, business wise, kind of the same thing. How do I let people pass this guard? At what level am I safe? At what level can I take risks here? And just learning it as I go. I wouldn't say it's an easy thing, Randy, to trust people. I definitely don't. I'm not, just like, okay, I've met you, you've been vouched for, you're a good person. But a lot of it comes down to just doing the right thing, and you build one relationship at a time. Like Classy is someone I said hello, hi Classy. Classy has introduced me to a lot of people in Kansas City. Kelly has introduced me to a lot of people in Kansas City, and I trust those two ladies a lot. And so whenever they've introduced me to someone, it comes with a level of, we have relationship, and so I'm extending that to you. And I think it just started, you know, one or two relationships like that, and it just goes from there.
Well, you have an awesome story, and I knew a lot of it was going to be awesome, but I never imagined how you were going to weave that into this message of
Me neither.
communication,
I
which
didn't
was
either.
perfect. I don't know whether you planned this today or it just happened organically, but the way you wove all these stories into communication, it was fantastic, and it's a great reminder.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us, Andrew. I put your contact info out there for folks that want to know more about Marknology. That's marknology.com. And I put your email out there in the chat so folks can reach out to you.
Thank you, everyone.
And, lot good in your future there, Andrew. Can't wait to see where you take this.
See you guys.
All right. Bye, everyone.